Hey, welcome to the Wealth Seed. This is episode 29, I believe. My goodness. Yay, I've been coming here for 29 straight weeks and we're going to keep it going. But if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, my name is Lexi Johnson. I am an international speaker. I am a financial coach, wealth coach, consultant, strategist, particularly for women entrepreneurs, helping them to master their money so that they can fulfill their God given purpose and leave a legacy, right? So, today I am doing a part two on smart things that you can do with your tax refund. The last time I came, last week when I came and spoke, I talked pretty generally about what some smart things to do with your tax refund. I talked about investing, but I talked very generally, right? I talked about investing in real estate, investing in paper assets, investing in alternative types of assets. I've talked about just general stuff. Well, today I wanted to come and see if I could give you some specifics. Now, what I do want to say before we get started into the topic is that this is not like official financial advice, right? I am speaking to a general and broad audience. I do not know your individual financial situation, right? And so the things that I mentioned today are for educational purposes only. Got it? All right. Educational purposes only. However, what you can do if you want to know whether something I've mentioned would be good for your portfolio or good for what you're trying to achieve financially, you can click on my calendar link, set up some time with me. It's a free consult, 30 minutes, right? And you can share with me specifically what you're trying to accomplish, what things that I said today that you are interested in, and then we can definitely talk about how this might fit for you individually, if it may fit for you individually. But other than that, okay, you are part of a broad audience today. And so I cannot say that what I share here today will be the right exact moves that you specifically need to make, but I did want it to come and to give some specific examples. All right. Also, listen, if you are tuning in live or watching the replay, we always love to know who's watching and where you're watching from. So do us a favor, will you comment? Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching from. And we definitely want to acknowledge you, whether we do that live or whether we come back, through the comments and acknowledge you. We definitely want to do that, right? All right. So those of you who've been watching the broadcast for a while, you know how we start out. We start out with a crazy money story for the week. And so since we are in tax season, we're going to continue with some outrageous things that people have done with their tax refunds. Last week, I shared a few. Today, I just want to share two of them with you. So let's get to it, right? So the first one that I want to share is someone used their tax money to plan a romantic getaway with a partner who could not get away. Yes, this is how the story goes, right? And this is from an article by Go Banking Rates. So it says, Turner said a family friend used a tax refund to surprise a loved one with a romantic getaway. There was one problem. The loved one had to attend mandatory work training during the surprise vacation. The buyer did not purchase trip insurance, so they faced airline change fees to salvage some of the ticket expense. And the hotel wasn't too accommodating either with the date change, right? So there was some fees that had to be paid because they now had to change the date also for the hotel. So using your refund, it says, to take a loved one on a trip isn't dumb in and of itself, right? Nothing wrong with that. But it's not smart to plan and pay for an expensive trip without knowing whether the other person can actually go, right? So get it. Sometimes we want to surprise people. And sometimes you can do that, but when it comes to things like that, you got to have, I mean, you got to have some basic conversation. Like, what are your plans for the week of blah, blah, blah? Do you have to be anywhere? Do you know what I'm saying? If you don't really want to say what it is, you still got to have some type of conversation. And these days, I would say, listen, do not purchase a trip, especially a really expensive one, without some type of trip insurance. Okay. Planes get delayed, all kinds of stuff, flights get canceled, all kinds of stuff happen. And without trip insurance, you can't get refunds. You got to pay to change the flight and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's always a good idea to have that trip insurance. All right, so that was one crazy thing that happened with someone and what they did with their tax refund. All right, I'm going to share one more, and this next one talks about loans for friends and family, right? So, we come into some tax money, and friends and family may know it. They may come asking for funds, right? And generosity is definitely a good thing, okay? However, using your refund for lending money to family or friends is usually a mistake. Okay. One of the things that people have a hard time with is telling friends and family no. Okay. Listen, I'm not immune to that either. I have my moments. Okay. When it's hard to tell friends and family, hey, no. Um, One of the things is that we have to help them realize, well, you need to realize it's not your responsibility to repeatedly bail out irresponsible people. Okay. So it's one thing when a person has fallen on some tough times, but they are still trying to be responsible with the little they have, or they're still making some very responsible moves. But it's another thing when you're repeatedly loaning someone money and they are not being responsible at all. Okay. Like, you're their safety net, you are their go to, you are their plan A, right? And so, in those cases, it is never good to loan money. It's highly likely you won't get the money back. Okay. And number two, you just continue to teach them to depend on you and to keep coming back to you. And you can't say no. You're sacrificing your financial future, because that's money, as you add it up, that could have been used for one of the things I'm getting ready to talk about. And you are also enabling that individual to keep behaving the way they do when it comes to money. Okay. So can we agree that we aren't going to do that, right? Let's not plan any surprise trips without first making sure the person can go, and making sure we have our trip insurance. And then number two, let's not loan money to family and friends who are irresponsible. Okay. Let's not do it repeatedly. All right. Not a good idea. Not good ways to utilize your tax refund. All right. So now, hey, Minister Patrick, good to see you. Now, let's get into some specifics. Again, last week I talked very broadly about investing. Today, I kind of want to bring it in a little bit and give some very specific things that someone can do with their tax refund. Again, I want to say I'm talking to a broad and general audience. And so I don't know your specific situation. So what I am sharing with you today is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice specifically for you. Okay. All right. So let's talk about it. One of the first things that you want to do with your tax refund, if you do not already have one, is to start building an emergency fund. Okay. Now, where do you start building an emergency fund? Well, there are two places. One is the bank, and it's very seldom that you're going to hear me say putting a bunch of your money in the bank, right? But you do need to at least have 3 months of your expenses in the bank. Why? Because the bank is very liquid. It's easy access. You just go to the ATM or go in and you can withdraw money for emergencies, right? But I do not recommend keeping any more than 3 months of your expenses at the bank. The next place to continue building your emergency fund. And if you can do this simultaneously, great, like putting money in the bank, but also putting money in an investment, then that would be great. Okay. Now, there are a couple of options when we're talking about emergency funds. So, this is money that still needs to be liquid, right? You need to be able to get to it in a day or two, at most a week, okay, or two. So, this is money that you need to be able to get to. All right. So, a couple of options. You can go kind of a traditional route and do a municipal bond or a utility bond, right? A bond fund, I should say, municipal bond fund, utility bond fund. You're not going to get high returns, okay? You might get some returns like, 3, 4, 5%. Right now it's tough because the market has just been down systemically. Um, but that is an option. Another option is a more liquid, well, not more liquid, I should say, but also a different option is a fund that returns anywhere from 2 to 4% weekly, right? Where you're getting some weekly interest or weekly dividends. Yes, these funds exist. There's a fund that I have been recommending to many of my clients because it's a nice fit in almost any portfolio. But you invest money 2 to 4%. This fund has been um, returning weekly, historically for the past 3 years. We can't guarantee what the future holds, but over the past 3 years, it has paid out every Friday 2 to 4%. And so, why do I like that for an emergency fund? Well, because it doesn't leave, like when you save at the bank, if you put $200 in there, it's going to be $200 tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day if you don't put anything else in there. So you have to keep adding in order for it to continue to build, right? But this other investment fund that I'm talking about, where you can get a return of 2 to 4% weekly, if you can put that on auto reinvest and you can put $500 in there, and you don't have to keep adding if you don't want to because the money is compounding every week, right? So I really like that option. Is that something that you want to explore? Again, make sure that you click the link in the description. There's several links, but there's a link for you to get on my calendar if you think that that's something that you might be interested in to help you leverage your emergency fund. That will be great. And why am I saying that the emergency fund is the first thing that you need to do? Listen, stuff happens, right? Tires go bad on our cars, transmissions go out, furnaces go out, air conditioning goes out. Like right now, where I'm living, like we had this whole like ice storm, right? And so lots of things have happened. Trees are down, and people's power have been out, and things are acting up. So sometimes some of this stuff may cost money, and if you don't have an emergency fund, what does that mean? Now you have to pull from your regular income, or you've got to go pull from maybe retirement, or maybe you have nothing to pull from at all, right? Which means now you have to figure out how to get the money. Do I go borrow it? Do I go, and then you get yourself in deeper debt? Or do I use a credit card and get yourself in deeper debt? So an emergency fund is everything. So if you don't have one of the first things that you want to do with your um, tax refund is to start an emergency fund. To one in the bank, and then one in an investment that's going to give you some returns so you don't have to keep adding to it. All right. Thank you, Minister Patrick. You stay blessed as well. All right. Now, what else can you do with your tax refund? Well, the next thing that you can do is to purchase insurance. Okay. So, one of the things that I talk about is the storehouses, your 3 or your 4 storehouses. Okay. The first storehouse is all about insurance, right? Listen, life insurance is essential. We do not know when we are going to check out of this place, okay? And if you do not have the money liquid in an account that other people have access to, and when I say other people, I mean like your spouse or whomever would be responsible for taking care of your funeral arrangements, if you don't have a good 15,000 just laying around that you're not going to be using, is laying around and it could be used for that if something happens, then you I highly recommend must get life insurance. Now, how much coverage, how much it's going to cost you, all of that varies. Everybody's situation is different. Again, you can get on my calendar. My the Calendly link is in the description, and we can talk about what your options are as it relates to life insurance. Because if something happens to you, right? How is your family going to continue to move forward? Or those that are dependent on you financially, how are they going to move forward if something were to happen to you? If something happened to you today, could the family, um, take care of burial, take care of debts and other things, and not have to worry about that, right? So life insurance is like that final love letter, right, to your family saying, hey, I looked out for you all. I'm looking out for you all. Even in my death, I'm looking out for you all. Okay. So if you have none, another smart thing that you can do is to purchase some. Okay. Now we've got life insurance that you purchase for death benefit. I recommend term. The other smart purchase is making sure that you become financially free and can retire at some point. All right. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to wait until age 65. Well, you can also use life insurance to do that. Okay. So you've got one that you can use for your death benefit, then you've got one that you can use to create wealth. So people have used whole life policies or index universal life policies, and uh, which IUL is short for that. And the IUL is my favorite to use for that, um, to create wealth, okay? And to make sure that you're going to have some funds in the future, okay? When you decide that you don't want to work anymore, right? So an IUL is a nice alternative to a traditional retirement fund like an IRA or a Roth IRA. Um, I'm not saying that you could have both, right? You could have an IRA, a Roth IRA, one of those, and you could have the IUL as well. What's the difference? Well, the um, IRAs, you get taxed, right? You either get taxed on the way in or you get taxed on the way out. The Roth usually is better because you're taxed on the way in. So this way, when you're withdrawing, that's tax free. The traditional, it goes in pre-tax. So everything that you're pulling out when it's time to retire gets taxed, right? So the IUL, though, is an alternative, and it's one that you don't have to be taxed when you take it out. Okay. So, and you take it out in the form of a policy loan. Okay. Because it is still life insurance and it's intended for death, but you can use the cash value, you can withdraw it as a policy loan and not be taxed on it. And you don't necessarily have to pay the loan back when you die. Then what happens is they will take out what you owe from the death benefit, but it's okay because you weren't using that specific policy for death benefit. You had something else for that. Okay. This other life insurance policy you're using to create wealth. All right. So there's life insurance that you will need to make sure that you can take care of your death. And then there's life insurance that you can use to create wealth. Okay. So that is another smart thing that you can do with your tax refund. Okay. And then, of course, I already talked about more traditional forms of preparing for retirement, which is your IRA, your Roth IRA, um, annuities, hybrid annuities, there are all kinds of different products out there. And what is best for one person may be different for someone else. So I'm encouraging you either to get on my calendar, or if you already have a financial professional, a advisor, a coach, a consultant, you may talk with them and to see what could work for you in your situation. Okay. All right. So that is three things that we've talked about already. We talked about the emergency fund and a couple of places where you can begin to build that. We talked about life insurance and we talked about retirement. Okay. All of these things are smart things that you can do with your tax refund. Another that you can do is invest in real estate. And I talked about this last week, but I didn't really go too deeply. There are a lot of options where real estate is concerned. The first thing you need to do is decide how active you want to be, meaning, do I actually want to own the property and be responsible for the property, right? Is it a fix and flip, or do I want to rent out properties? Do I want to Airbnb properties or whatever? Do I actually want to be physically responsible for a property? Or would I rather not do that and I want to be I want to be passive in how I invest in real estate, right? And so let's talk a little bit about the passive end of it. There are different ways that you can do that. There are what they call REITs, REIT, REIT. Then they put a little small s at the bottom because it's plural, but it's real estate investment. Real estate investment trusts, right? There are these funds that you can invest in, and then they go and other people are responsible for the actual properties, right? But you make a return. Okay. So there are a couple of funds out there that you can do that with. One is called Diversifund, DIVERSYFUND. Again, this is educational purposes only. Okay. I don't know if this is great for you or not. But it could be something that you're looking for. It's very simple to set up an account with this is an online real estate crowd platform, and they have many of them. Okay. So Diversifund is one, but they have many of them. You can check them out and see which one works for you. You can buy into the crowd fund, invest in different multifamily commercial properties for as little as $500. Though I would recommend you would probably want to make an investment of about $2,500. But if you don't have that, certainly, you start where you can start, right? And then you make sure that you understand how their returns work. With Diversifund, their goal is to generate 10 to 20% return on the properties that they buy. Okay. So not bad, right? You can invest in a fund. They do the work. They return you 10 to 20%. So that's an option, right? Another option to invest in real estate passively are tax liens, right? And also maybe not so passively, tax deeds. You're going to end up with a property, but you can, get the property and then sell it as is, right? And still make a profit. So if those are things that you may be interested in, again, you can get on my calendar, but real estate is another way to, another great thing to do with your tax refund. Okay. All righty. So what else? College fund. All right. If you have children, not only after you have your emergency fund set up, your retirement strategy is set, and you've started contributing to that, and you've got a plan for that. Only after those things are taken care of, then you worry about your children's college fund, right? It's like flying on an airplane when they train us in case there's any emergency, and they say, hey, the little air thing mask is going to come down from the little ceiling there, and they tell you, hey, put your mask on first before you help the person next to you, right? That is the same thing That has to happen in finances. Okay. You got to make sure that you are financially set first before you can turn around and make sure that children are financially set. Too many times, what I see is parents, grandparents, um, making sure that the children are set before they make sure that they are set financially. And I see it done even with tax refunds. So they will go spend enormous amounts on their children. And I'm not saying don't get your children nothing, but again, how can you better, spend that money on your children if you're going to spend it, right? So some type of college fund. Okay, so there are different kinds. There's 529 plans, there's UGMAs, there's UTMAs. You can also do the Index Universal Life insurance policy as an alternative to college funds. There's so many things that you can do. Again, because I'm talking to a broad audience, I don't know what may neatly fit in your portfolio. But if you get on my calendar, we can talk about it, right? Um, but that is another smart use of your tax refund. Okay. So again, you should get the picture here. Taking that money and spending it on something that is going to yield you a return. That is what you want to do with the majority of the money. Now, once you've done that, listen, if you want to knock off and take a trip somewhere to some place you haven't been and just do something for yourself, that's fine, right? If you want to make some home improvements, this is another smart thing that you can do. Maybe you're thinking of selling your home in the next year or two. You want to make some home improvements. Excellent. Use some of those monies to do that, so that it increases the equity in your home, so that down the line when you sell it, you're going to make more for your home than what you paid on it. So that can be a smart move as well. Okay. Investing in yourself, taking a course, learning a new skill, that's going to help you either further your career, or you want to change careers, right? Or you want to start a business and you haven't had the extra cash to do so. Using your tax return to invest in yourself could be a very smart thing to do. It also could be a very dumb thing to do, right? But it depends on who you are, right? So you have to ask yourself the question, all right, if I invest in me, am I going to make sure that I yield a return? Okay. And so that means applying, you can take the course, but if you don't apply it, you can get business coaching, but if you don't apply it, right, you're not going to yield a return. So you've got to ask you, are you committed to yielding yourself a return? And if so, then investing yourself is also a very smart thing to do. Okay. All right. Then after those things, as I was saying, after all of that, then hey, yeah, taking that trip and somewhere haven't been, and just having a good time. That's great, right? Then after all of that, then if you like, okay, I've got some credit card debt or something that I want to settle, then let's do that. See, am I saying don't pay your credit card debt at all? No, but what I'm saying is invest first, because the returns that you make from investments, particularly if you find an investment that will yield your return weekly, or in a short period of time, you can take those returns and pay down credit card debt, or pay down student loan debt, or whatever other debt, right? If you take your tax refund and you pay down debt off the top, then you're back at zero. Okay, so this is why I say invest first, so that you are not back at zero. Yield returns, take the returns. Okay, it's called living off of your return on interest. Take the returns, pay down the debt, but you still have your principal that you invested that is still working, and working for you and making returns. Okay, so I hope that this discussion today has been helpful for you. Again, if you want to know whether or not any of the things that I mentioned today would be good for you and your wealth strategy, and for you and what you're trying to accomplish, then click on the calendar link. Okay, set some time up. Let's talk about it. All right. Other than that, Today's discussion, educational purposes only, right? Because I don't know who all is watching, and I don't know your individual financial situations to say, yes, absolutely, this is what I would advise you to do. Okay. All right. So that's that for the topic. Hope that it's been helpful. What's coming up? Listen, I just did an interview with Dr. Laxley Stephenson. He's the host of a Collision with Purpose, where he interviews people and ask them questions about purpose. And I think purpose is something that we don't talk about enough. I think knowing your purpose, walking in your purpose is essential to becoming financially free. It's essential to becoming free in every area of your life. And so these conversations are important. I have included the link, the YouTube link, to the interview that I did with him. Well, he interviewed me. And so please go and check that out. Go and subscribe. And perhaps you have some things that you want to contribute to the conversation on purpose. So you can reach out to Dr. Stevenson and let him know that. So go and check that out. Tonight, as of the day of this recording, which is March 23rd, or this broadcast, which is March 23rd, tonight I am on candid conversations, okay, with my sister keeper. My sister keeper is owned by the fabulous Nadia Manzano, and so that is happening tonight. I believe it is at, oh my goodness, I think I'm going to get the time wrong. I believe it's at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There'll be, if you're on Facebook, there are posts on my pages and in the groups, and suppose I could upload one to YouTube as well, because I believe she'll be broadcasting to YouTube as well. You can find her, My Sister Keeper, and again, her name is Nadia Manzano. So you can search and then like her pages or whatever, so that you can see that live tonight. And I believe it's 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I hope I got that right. Anyway, that's what's going on. Anything else you can see there in the description and the corresponding links. And we'll see you next time with another installment of The Wealth Seed. You guys have an amazing day. Peace.